Hey everyone, I'm Ramen Powder, and today we are back for the second video in this mini two-part series where I go through these Team QML event radar maps that I made. And if you didn't watch the first video, I highly recommend you to go back and watch part 1 first. In that video I explained what these maps are, how I came up with them, and basically talked about everything you need to know about these maps. So in part 1 we covered the first 16 teams, and today we're going to go through the other 16 teams that I did not cover in part 1. And without further ado, let's just go straight into it. So the first team that we are going to go through is the Mountain Climbers. So there, let's add them and let's combine it with the average. And okay, the Mountain Climbers are a team that have not qualified for the Team Quadrilla Marble League a single time, but they've had quite a lot of interesting results in the B division. They did very well in their first 2 seasons, got second place overall in the first, third place in the second, but then season 3 was a big drop off. They got relegated, got 15th only in season 3, and then season 4 they bounced back pretty well, getting 6th place. So despite not qualifying, the Mountain Climbers have had success, and their map here looks pretty good. They have some noticeable strengths. Balancing and Quadrilla Descent, those two particularly, are quite above average. Those two are in the 60s, so that's a good sign. Everything else is quite close to the average, and down here there are a bit of weaknesses that the Mountain Climbers have to sort out, namely the sprint events. The speed events, sprint is only 44.07, and relay race is under 40, so those two speed events the Mountain Climbers aren't particularly good in. Collision events also is just barely above 40, so they aren't very good there as well. But in the Quadrilla events, Marathon, Quadrilla Descent, and Quadrilla Race, they are above average in all 3 of them. Have podiums or close to podiums in all of them. It's just the qualifiers that this team really gets held back, and the qualifiers brings out the worst in the Mountain Climbers. And so going into season 5, if they can qualify, I'm confident the Mountain Climbers can show that they can be a decent team and mix it up with some of the bigger names in the Team Quadrilla Marble League. So generally they are a pretty consistent team all around. No major weaknesses. The ones under average aren't great but aren't terrible, and the ones above average, aside from Balancing and Quadrilla Descent, those two are particularly good, but everything else is just about like slightly above average or slightly below average. So while everything else is consistent, they need to find a way to continue getting those strong performances and lifting up those averages in these staple events. Okay, let's go on to the Nickel Knights. And the Nickel Knights, well, this is probably one of the worst maps you will see. They are widely regarded as the worst team in the Team Quadrilla Marble League. They started off in season 1 pretty decent. They didn't qualify. They haven't qualified a single time, but they got 9th place in the B division, got 3 medals in that season 1 B division. But since then, 16th in season 2 and season 3, and 14th in season 4. Season 4 was an improvement for sure. They started off very poorly, just like they did in season 2 and 3, but towards the end they started to show results that they haven't really shown since season 1. And so there are some redeeming factors here on this map. The main one is the triathlon. I don't think they've ever done the biathlon, but the triathlon, coming off a bronze in season 4, that was their major high point in season 4, got them above the bottom 2, and they sit pretty far above the average with that bronze medal with 61.43. A couple of events are also pretty decent. Sprint is just barely under average, so they've had maybe not top halves, but very close to top halves multiple times in the sprint. In the collision, they are slightly above average. They have a medal back in season 1. Of course, season 1 is weighed the same as season 4. There's no recency weighting here, so collision, that season 1, I think, bronze medal is holding them up there as well. but everything else it's just bad, very bad. In so many of these events, Quadrilla Race is 17.66 for such a fundamental event in the QML. They need to find a marble that can get decent results there. Marathon in the 30s, elimination race in the 30s. Really, 30s is the norm for these events here. Block pushing and bumping, 16.77. That might be the lowest out of everyone. I'm not sure. But that is one of the lowest out of everyone in the strength event, and block pushing and block bumping. They are one of the weakest teams, if not the weakest team, in raw strength. Balancing is also very poor. And just generally across the board, this is a team with very little hope of turning it around and doing something good. I have hopes that they might be able to get out of relegation because the trajectory is pretty good based on Season 4, but it's still going to be a big ask for them to, even if they get out of relegation, to even qualify or even get like top half in any season, even in the B division. Let's go on to the Olive Orbs. The Olive Orbs have a very interesting shape here. There's an elephant in the room here, elimination race, where I think they've gotten the best score out of everyone, 82.1. Their elimination race is phenomenal, somehow, out of nowhere. And the rest of the ratings, the Quadrilla race is also well above average too. And Marathon is right at the average, but the rest of the ratings are all well under average. So the Olive Orbs have like one huge strength here in the elimination race. Two also decent to good events here. And everything else is just nowhere. The Olive Orbs have qualified twice in Season 2 and Season 4. Both times they qualified, they did not do well in the A Division. 15th in Season 2 and 14th in Season 4. Their B Divisions were better. In Season 1, they didn't qualify. Actually only managed 11th in Season 1. Season 3 was probably their best season. They got 7th in the B Division. Didn't qualify, but was very consistent and close to... No, not 7th, 6th place in the B Division. So it was a very solid season in Season 3, and things were looking up for them going to Season 4. Elimination race, they have a 2nd place there in Season 2, and solid top half results in both 3 and 4, and that's why their rating there is so good. Quadrilla race, they have a gold from Season 2. Yeah, elimination race, Quadrilla race, those were their 2 medals. And Olive Garden is their designated marble, the reserve, who is now the former reserve, who has now been promoted in the off season, going to Season 5. And I think that's a change long overdue, because that marble has been typically one of them that gives the Olive Orbs their uncharacteristically good results. So yeah, they're the designated marble for the Quadrilla race. They've gotten a gold and some other solid results there as well. I think a bronze in Season 3 B Division as well. Marathon, I don't think they have a great like top 4 performance in the marathon, but they have had solid top half results there as well. But then we look at all of these weaknesses, and there are so many of them. The 2 biggest ones are the Quadrilla Descent, where I don't think they've gotten a single finish outside the bottom 2, which is quite frankly atrocious. This team is somehow just extremely poor at the Quadrilla Descent, consistently at the bottom, and they've done it like 3 times or something, so it's a regular occurrence as well. Biathlon and triathlon, they're also in the 20s over there. And then you have like all of these team events. There's not a single team event they are even close to the average. Their individual events are clearly much better, but these 3 decent to good events are their individual events. All of these team events, the Quadrilla Descent is the big weakness, but everything else is consistently like in the 30s. You can see relay race, block pushing, collision, balancing, all 30s, in that 30 range. So a captaincy change may be needed. I mean, they haven't really had a captaincy change before, but maybe that's something they'll have to think about going to Season 5, because individually, if it wasn't for certain marbles on this individual team, the Olive Orbs would be one of the worst teams in the QML. Let's go on to the Poison Ivy. And they have a very interesting shape here. A bit of a heart shape is their map. And that shows they have some very strong events. The Poison Ivy, I think before Season 4, I would have regarded them as a top 5 team in the Team QML. Of course, they're coming off Season 4. Their host season did not do too great, though. Only 11th place overall. It was a close mid-pack, so it was a decent season. Earlier in the season, they were very solid as well. But Season 2 and 3, those seasons, they got 3rd and 4th, very close to the top, especially in Season 3, when they got 4th place. They were a championship contender right towards the end. The Poison Ivy, after not qualifying for Season 1, they have been in the A Division since Season 2 and have never looked back. Quadrilla Descent and Quadrilla Race and Triathlon, those 3 are big strengths, same as the Relay Race. Relay Race, I think, might be the best out of them all, actually. They have a silver there in Season 2 and 4th place, I think, in Season 4. Quadrilla Descent, they have a podium there, 2 podiums there. Quadrilla Race, Triathlon, also podiums there for sure. Marathon is the big weakness, the biggest weakness out of them all. And yeah, just 26.34. They have not sure if they've gotten top half in a single marathon event, not in Season 4, not in Season 3 as well, and I'm not sure if they did in Season 1 or Season 2. But yeah, the marathon, they haven't seemed to find a marble that can really get them solid results in the marathon. They need to experiment a bit more with that. Everything else, though, is close to the average, if not above average. So clearly the Poison Ivy, one of the most solid, consistent teams, and they aren't really swayed towards the individual or the team as well. They have, as you can see, a pretty symmetrical graph here, so pretty symmetrical map here. So they have a good balance between the individual and the team. I think slightly better for the team, because this relay race is much better than this marathon. Okay, so the Poison Ivy, they are very solid. We know how strong they can be on their day. They just need to keep it up, and they are going to qualifiers for the first time since Season 2, so they do need to qualify and continue their run in the A Division. They would not want to go back to the B Division after a slightly underwhelming Season 4. Now we go on to the Pumpkin Patch. The Pumpkin Patch, another very interesting shape here. They have over here and over here solid results, but then on these sides it's not very good. And it's another team that I don't think has much of a bias towards team or individual events. They have strengths in the Quadrilla Race. That is their best event out of them all. Squash, their captain, has gotten very decent results there. Triathlon is close to the average here as well in the team events. Relay Race is above average. Block pushing and bumping, they're coming off a win in block bumping in Season 4. And Collision is close to the average. But then the below average events are very much below average. You can see a lot of 30 range scores here. Elimination Race, Sprint, Marathon also is not great. They have a podium there, so the other results must be really poor. And then you have 2 very, very big weaknesses here in the Quadrilla Descent and the balancing. And the balancing particularly, I think, with how much that shows up in qualifiers, that is what leads this team to not qualify a lot of the time. Because the Pumpkin Patch have not qualified once in their career, got in the B Division all 4 seasons, relegated in the first season, they got 14th place. Since then, though, they have improved. 12th place, just barely avoided relegation in Season 2. And then solid 5th places in both 3 and 4 in the B Division. So Pumpkin Patch have been improving, but there are still some events where they struggle a lot in balancing, namely, and then Elimination Race, Sprint, those 2 events. Sprint shows up in qualifiers sometimes, so they need to focus on that as well. They have strengths of the Quadrilla Race particularly. That's probably going to be in qualifiers in Season 5. So if they can keep doing what they're doing there, they will get a decent result there as well. But there are some of these events that they need to experiment a bit in, see if they can put a different marble in, or see if they can do some lineup changes in to see if they can get a decent result. Let's go on to the rock pools. The rock pools are, like the pumpkin patch, a team that have never qualified. There are actually 7 teams that still have never made it to the A division in the Team Quadrilla Marble League. The rock pools have had mixed fortunes in the B division. I'd say better than the pumpkin patch for sure. And you can see there is a big strength here in the sprint. They got 2nd place in the Season 2 B division, and whenever it's shown up in the qualifiers, in Season 4 they won it in their group in the qualifiers. Whenever it's shown up in the qualifiers, they have done well in it. So the rock pools are one of the best teams in the sprint for sure. And it's actually their reserve plunge that has been putting in those good performances in the sprint. Marathon is the biggest weakness here, like Poison Ivy we saw 2 maps ago. Whenever we get to the end of a season, the marathon is where rock pools really start to falter. And I think that's quite indicative of how the rock pools tend to start well in seasons but then fall apart towards the end. Especially in Season 3, that was their best season. They got 4th place in the B division. Started with 2 golds in the first 3 events, but then towards the end just dropped off and fell off the podium into 4th. Season 2 as well, they started well for sure. And then I think 2 15th places in the Quadrilla Descent and the Marathon to end it. The Marathon, they have consistently done poor in that event. And that shows in this rating here. Everything else seems to be just barely under average. Aside from the sprint, the block pushing and bumping is slightly above average. They have a gold there. But then everything else is like in the 40 range. Both on the team event and the individual event side. So again, another team that doesn't really have a bias towards team or individual. They're just consistently under the par in most of these events. And they're another team that brings out that the qualifiers bring out the worst in them. Because typically when we get to a qualifiers, they just drop up 8th place out of 8 in their group in the first event. And they just can't really recover from there. They start poorly in the qualifiers, and even if they do well towards the end, it just isn't enough for them to qualify. I do have hopes that they might be able to qualify in Season 5. While Season 4 was probably their worst season, I mean, they had 12th place in both 1 and 4. So just barely avoided relegation in both 1 and 4. But the rock pools, as time and time goes on, they are figuring themselves out. And they are figuring out who's good in what events. So, despite a shaky Season 4, I can't see the rock pools potentially qualifying for Season 5. I guess it really depends on what the qualifier events are. If they're sprint, I think their chances will increase by a significant amount. Let's go on to the Rosebloods. The Rosebloods are the team that is formerly known as the Red Lotus, rebranded to the Rosebloods, and they are one of the best teams in the Team Quadrilla Marble League. They are champions from Season 3. We're doing so well in Season 4, contending for a title for sure, and then it just fell apart towards the end, fell off the podium entirely in a very unprecedented, poor run of form in the last few events. But you can see here their strength. In their strength, they are phenomenal. Sprint and relay race and even marathon, those 3 events, they are fantastic in. They have 91 in the sprint. I think that's the best score out of anyone. We were just coming off the rock pools. The Rosebloods have done the sprint so many times and have done so well in almost all of those occasions. I think Season 4, 8th place, is the only time they have missed the podium in the sprint, which is astounding to think about. That. Yeah, they got 2nd place in Season 1, 3rd place in the B division in Season 2, and then 2nd place again in Season 3. So they have 3 straight podiums in the sprint. Didn't manage it in Season 4, but still scraped the top half. Relay race as well, they have a gold and a silver there as well. Marathon, Water Lily, their captain, has multiple podiums there, multiple bronzes there from Season 1 and Season 4. And then some of these other events that are above average are good enough to, hold them up. The 2 big weaknesses are Quadrilla Descent and Elimination Race. And compared to some of the other very strong names, like the other best teams in the QML, like the Deep Divers and the Golden Cheeses, who don't really have a major or have just one major weakness. The Rosebloods do have a couple of them, and that's what drags them down a bit towards the end of the season, especially. The elimination race did not go well for them in Season 4. Same with the Quadrilla Descent. I think Quadrilla Descent, I'm not sure if they got a single top half in their career. So that's one of their biggest weaknesses for sure. Same with the elimination race, they consistently get eliminated early, but everything else is really strong. And in the speed events, this might just be the best team in the league, because sprint and relay race, those two speed events, they are easily the best across both of those events. The Rosebloods aren't going to qualifiers despite missing the podium because the Venomous Vipers are hosting. They already were in the top 3, so they are going straight to the Season 5A division, and they will continue to try to do what they've been doing in the past 2 seasons, aside from the end of Season 4. But yeah, this is easily one of the strongest teams in the Team QML, and a team to fear for sure. Let's go on to the Shadow Riders. The Shadow Riders also have a very, very strong track record in some of these staple events, and I think, quite frankly, this map flatters them quite a bit, because this map makes them look like one of the best teams in the QML. Now, I'm not saying they aren't. They have qualified every season, and up until Season 4, they had not finished outside the top 6 once. They got 4th in Season 1, 6th in both 2 and 3. Season 4 wasn't quite as good. They started off very poorly. In fact, Season 3 as well. This team has had a knack for starting off not great, but then towards the end, they really kick it into a different gear. Season 3, they had not gotten a single podium until event 13, then got 4 medals to end the season in event 13 to 16. And it was looking similar in Season 4. They started off very poorly, towards the bottom up until event 11, and then 11, 12, 13 in the curling, triathlon, and elimination race, they got gold, and silver, and everyone was thinking, oh, it's happening again, the Shadow Riders are going to make their brilliant comeback again. But then in the final few events, after that great 3-event stretch, the Shadow Riders didn't manage to continue that form. And so they fell to 10th place. So their worst season, but still, it was a close mid-pack, and so still decent for sure for the Shadow Riders in Season 4. And in these staple events, consistently strong in these staple events. The biathlon and triathlon, they have Gloom there. Of course, we know how good Gloom is, both in the team and the individual league. Of course, our individual champion in Season 2. But then in the Team Quadrilla Marble League, in the triathlon, they have golds in both Season 3 and Season 4. Elimination race, they are coming off a silver there. Sprint, they have a silver there in Season 2. Consistent results as well. Relay race, they have a gold in Season 2. So in pretty much all of these events, they have a gold or a silver in one of these seasons. Block pushing and bumping, they won it in Season 1. Surprisingly have not done as well since then, but still consistent enough to be above average. And then balancing. Balancing is another event that they are consistently well above average, with a podium there, and typically when it shows up in qualifiers, they really show up there as well. The weaknesses are the Quadrilla events. Quadrilla Descent is just barely under average. Then Marathon and Quadrilla Race, the two most staple Quadrilla events, those two are their only major weaknesses here. And I guess a lot of the events that don't show up enough, that aren't really shown on here, those are the events where sometimes they may drop a very poor result. And so that's why sometimes they start very poorly and don't really get a medal until later in the season. But in most of these events, they have a very good track record in, and they are going to qualifiers in Season 5, so they have to make sure they continue their form in some of these events, because some of these events are certainly going to be there. Quadrilla Race, they have to figure something out there, but I mean, sprint, balancing, relay race, block pushing, those are events that you could all definitely see in the qualifiers. Okay, let's go on to the Sinister Sprinters. And the Sprinters are another team that has qualified twice in the Team Quadrilla Marble League. They made it in Season 2 and Season 4. Not greatest of successes in Season 2. They started poorly, brought it back to 11th place in Season 2. Season 4 was much better though, and I'd say definitely their best season in the Team Quadrilla Marble League. Got a couple of goals which propelled them up to 6th place, which is quite the improvement, especially after Season 3 where they got only 12th place in the B division. So one of the biggest glow-ups out of any team in Season 4, and this map shows they have some decent strengths balancing and collision, especially. That is the big strength for them. Elimination race is also good, they're coming off gold there. Quadrilla race also above average, they have some medals there as well, but then there's a lot under average as well. Triathlon and biathlon, I think they had a last in the biathlon once. Marathon is under average, descent under average, block pushing and bumping also well under average in the 20s, 27.23. So Sinister Sprinters, they have certain strengths, certain weaknesses. I think that's why that goes to show in their qualification record with 2 qualified, 2 non-qualified. And they aren't the most consistent team. I think that's clear from this map. But they are definitely not a hopeless team. They definitely, on their day, can really do something great. It's very much a toss-up whether the Sprinters will qualify for Season 5. They could easily qualify, could easily not qualify. But Season 4 was very much a step in the right direction, and if they can continue that, they would become one of the most solid teams in the Team Quadrilla Marble League, for sure. Let's go to the Slime Balls. And, well, the Slime Balls, they are probably the most inconsistent team in the whole league. Of course, they are Season 2 champions. Season 3, they got 5th place, but that 5th place, I think the placement doesn't show the full story there. They were, I think, 11 or 10 points off Red Lotus at the time, Roseblood now, in 1st place in Season 3. The top 5 was extremely close in Season 3, and the Slime Balls were a contender all the way throughout. And you can see some of their events, when they are good, they can be fantastic. Zone Collision, they are the best team out of anyone in Zone Collision, or just Collision. They won Collision in Season 1. They got, I think, bronze in Zone Collision in Season 3, silver or bronze in Collision in Season 2, and 4th place in Season 4. So not a single finish outside the top 4 in Collision or Zone Collision. Balancing, they consistently show up well and do well there. Descent, they've done well there, they've got a gold there. Elimination race, gold there as well. But then some of these weaknesses, they are really dragging this team down, and I think this team was exposed a lot in Season 4 especially, where all of their good events just weren't good, and then their bad events were extremely bad. Sprint is a great example for this. They got a gold in Season 2, but then dead last in Season 4. They might need to experiment with some other marbles in the sprint, see if anyone else can do a bit better, because I don't think they can capture that Season 2 glory again. Quadrilla race is one of their worst events as well, just barely under 30 in the 20 range. And marathon is also 38.17. Quadrilla events is not great for the Slime Balls, and I wouldn't even consider them one of the best teams in the QML, despite a championship in Season 2. You can see just how inconsistent they are in Season 1 and Season 4, especially Season 4, the worst single season any team has put up in the A division of the Team Quadrilla Marble League. The Slime Balls, they need to make changes. They have new management for Season 5, and frankly they need it, because some of the decisions in Season 4 were a bit questionable, to say the least. So I think one thing to say about the Slime Balls before we move on, some of their biggest strengths, I think, lie in the Gravitrax events, and I don't really consider them the staple events. They've kind of in Season 4 especially, I didn't really include that much Gravitrax. Only in the triathlon in one of the sections and the elimination race there was Gravitrax, and those two events they didn't do well either. But obstacle race, which is a standard Gravitrax event, elimination race in the past, Gravitrax Pursuit. Those are all events that Slimeballs have won in, that Slimeballs have consistently done well in the previous seasons, particularly Season 2 and Season 3. And I think the exclusion of Gravitrax on this kind of unflatters them a bit more than it should. But yeah, the Slimeballs, despite having some really big strengths, and of course they do, they're former champion, they have some major weaknesses that need to be addressed in Season 5. Will they qualify for Season 5? Time will tell. They have the talent to, but the form right now is not looking good. Let's go to Team Atlantic. Team Atlantic. Oh, and Team Atlantic is probably one of the least exciting teams in terms of their performance in the whole league. They started their first 2 seasons pretty well. Season 1 and Season 2, Season 1 especially, they did not get a single medal the whole time, still managed 9th overall. A very consistent season in Season 1. Season 2 was slightly worse, they got 10th place, had some medals there, got a gold there in block pushing. They're under average here, so clearly since then they haven't done well in block pushing and block bumping. They have their strengths in quadrilla race and sprint, well above average in both of them. Sea Turtle, their designated sprint marble, they didn't do well in Season 4, but before that have done consistently strong in the sprint. Quadrilla race, they're coming off a gold there with Narwhal in Season 4, also done well in there in Season 2, got 4th place. But in Season 3 and 4, especially Season 4, there were just so many events where just towards the bottom 4. Marathon was not good. Despite a silver there in Season 3, they have consistently done poor in the marathon otherwise. Relay race is under average. Balancing also under average. They're not majorly under average in any of these events aside from the marathon and I guess maybe relay race. But with only 2 events above average, you can clearly see most of the time Team Atlantic gets knocked out in the heats or puts in a very poor performance and just occasionally does really well. They have perfect attendance somehow. Definitely the worst team with perfect attendance in the Team QML Marble League. Not a single top half finish. But perfect attendance isn't something to really disregard completely. I don't think it's the best indicator of performance, but Team Atlantic clearly can qualify and clearly can show up in the qualifiers, especially in events like sprint and quadrilla race. When they show up in the qualifiers, Team Atlantic does manage to capitalize off of those and get themselves just barely qualified. But I want to see this team either qualify and actually put in more consistent performances in the A division, or even just take a season in the B division, not qualify, and try to rebuild themselves over there before returning in potentially Season 6. So yeah, Team Atlantic is not in a good position going to Season 5. Not a lot of people are very optimistic about them, and rightly so. But with new management, I think we might be in for a bit of surprises with Team Atlantic. Let's go on to Team Nectar. Team Nectar has quite a decent shape here considering their start of their career. In the first 2 seasons, among the first 2 seasons alone, they were probably the worst team in the Team QML Marble League. They got 15th in Season 1, in the bottom for the entirety of that Season 1 B division, battling with the Hazelnuts. 14th in Season 2, it was slight improvement, but not nearly enough for them to get out of relegation. Season 3 was their big breakthrough. Even if it was only 10th place in the end, they managed to finally get out of that relegation zone. And Season 4 was even better with 7th place in the B division. They haven't qualified a single time, but Season 5 may be when they do it. Season 4, they were close. They were very close to qualifying in Season 4, and then just lost it in the final event in the Pursuit, which the Pursuit isn't here, but still. Season 5, after their strongest season to date in the B division in Season 4, Season 5 might be finally when they can do it. And Season 4 and Season 3 are especially the seasons that really bring up some of these ratings, because while they have weaknesses, there are a lot of these ratings that are close to the average or above average. Elimination race, they got a silver there in Season 3, that pulls them up there. Biathlon, triathlon, Season 4 was solid, top half. Should have done well there as well. Balancing, I think that was very close to the average, just barely above average. They have a win in the qualifiers there, silver in Season 4 as well, so Recently, they've improved, but they may not have done well in their beginning. Relay race is also decent. I think advanced from their heats in season 4. But sprint, block pushing, collision, quadrilla race, still all very much under average. And of course, a lot of this is because of season 1 and season 2. But they are an improving team, and if they can iron out some of their mistakes in some of those other events, we could see them qualify. Somehow, we could see them qualify for season 5. And for a team that 2 seasons ago was regarded as the worst team in the QML, this is quite the turnaround for Team Nectar. There is reason to be optimistic about this team. Now we go on to the Treat Fleet. The Treat Fleet are quite flattered by this map. They haven't qualified a single time and haven't really done much across their 4 seasons. Probably one of the least notable teams in the Team Quadrilla Marble League based on performance. They got 4th place in season 1 in the B division, and was actually the only team in contention along with the Maze Runners, who were the Yellow Lotus at the time. They were the only team just like barely outside looking in contention in going to the finale, but didn't do well in the finale, in the marathon, and fell back to 4th place. And then season 2 was much more mid-pack, I think 9th place only, very not notable in season 2. Season 3 was a big drop-off, 14th and relegated, and then season 4 was a nice bounce back. Season 4 actually, despite a single bronze medal only in the quadrilla descent, and they have multiple medals in the descent, that is one of their strongest events for sure. Despite just 1 bronze medal in season 4, they were extremely consistent. I think like consistently getting top half mid-pack results in season 4. Not really any bottom 4 finishes. I don't think they got a single bottom 4 finish in the entirety of the season 4 B division. So a bigger improvement from season 3 rather, as the Treat Fleet, after getting relegated and doing so poorly in so many of these events. Treat Fleet did manage to bring it back in so many of the staple events. Quadrilla race, triathlon, collision is one of their best events. They got a gold there in season 1, decent in zone collision in season 2 as well, balancing, gold in season 1 as well. So season 1 does bring up some of these ratings, especially team event wise. That is where this team shines in these 3 events. Not quite these 2, but regardless, individually, Treat Fleet haven't really seen that same success. I don't think they've gotten a single medal individually, whereas they've gotten multiple medals and multiple golds team event wise. So maybe some experimentation is needed in the individual events, see if different marbles can capture some new magic in the individual events, because team event wise I don't think they need a captaincy change. They are looking pretty good. And they're another team that haven't qualified a single time, but I could see qualifying for season 5 if they manage to get the right places in at the right time. This team definitely has the talent to do good enough to get themselves in the top 4 of a qualifier group. And yeah, there are a lot of teams here that have never qualified that definitely have a decent shot of qualifying for the first time in season 5. The Treat Fleet definitely is one of them. Let's go on to the Valley Dashers. The Valley Dashers, another team with a very interesting shape in this map. Relay race is their best event. They did not get a single finish outside the top 5 in the relay race until season 4 when they got knocked out in their heat. But still, the relay race, they are exceptional there. Had the record there from season 1, held it all the way until season 4 when the Golden Cheeses took it from them. Marathon, also a great event for them. Gold in season 3. In fact, season 3 was their big strong point. 3rd place overall. The other 3 seasons not as good in the bottom half in the A division, but they have perfect attendance in the Team Quadrilla Marble League. And some of these events, they are very solid. And even aside from marathon and relay race, their 2 major strengths. Sprint is above average. Collision above average. Balancing also above average. Descent and block bumping slightly under average, but it's very close. They're very much still decent in those events. Elimination race is the elephant in the room. The just 17.9, that might be the worst score out of anyone in the elimination race. That is one of, like, bottom 3 for sure in the elimination race. I think they have multiple bottom 2s in that event. And despite that, despite the elimination race being such a poor event for the Valley Dashers, that's the only one that they are significantly under average at all. every event aside from that is either above average or very close to it. So I think that goes to show how in some seasons they do well in certain events and others they don't. Season 3 especially, a lot of these events they did very well in, but then in other seasons they may not have done well in at all. So the Valley Dashers need to be able to capture that Season 3 form. That's pretty much all it is, because they have potential to do well in so many of these events, just don't seem to unlock it all the time and consistently across different seasons. They are going to qualifiers in Season 5, so their qualification, their perfect attendance might be at risk, but I mean, if they can capture that Season 3 form, if they can just do well enough to qualify, then they have nothing to worry about. But I'd like to see this team qualify and really, even if it's not as reaching the highs of Season 3, I'd like to see them be a bit more consistent across the season, and aside from getting just a few medals and just everything else bottom half, because that's what Season 4 was quite like. Just 3 medals and then so many bottom halves for the Valley Dashers. Let's go on to the Venomous Vipers. And there isn't really quite a team like the Venomous Vipers. They have gotten a top 3 finish in every tournament they have done. They've spent 3 seasons in the B division, getting 3rd, 2nd, and 2nd across the first 3 seasons in the B division, and they struggled to qualify all 3 of those seasons. We were thinking, when are they finally going to qualify and show what they can do? Can they show what they can do in the A division? Are they going to do as good as they did in the B division? And then Season 4 came along, and my oh my, they delivered. And for anyone who doesn't really factor in the B division, who doesn't really consider a good performance in the B division that worth it, well, look no further than the Venomous Vipers, because after 3 seasons of success in the B division, they came in the A division and they just looked like it didn't look like a different league for them. They just performed exactly the same as they did in the lower league. They were so strong, especially towards the end of the season. They were just racking medal after medal, the most medals out of anyone, and 2nd overall. So close to that championship, just missed out in the marathon in the final event. And despite that, you can see how strong their marathon score really is. So before Season 4, you can see, you can tell this team has done consistently well in the marathon. Gold in Season 3 at the hands of Python. I think their captain Viper did well as well in Season 1, silver back then, and Season 2 must have also been pretty decent. Season 4, despite the bottom half, their marathon is one of their best events. Quadrilla, Descent, also one of their best events. I think, not sure if they've placed outside the top 5 in that event. I don't think they have. And of course, coming off a gold there in Season 4. So that's one of their best events as well. Aside from that, block pushing and bumping is also well above average. Triathlon, above average. Elimination race, also slightly above average. Balancing is the elephant in the room, and their only event, I think, that is under average. Yeah, and it's significantly under average, 27.2. Balancing is one of the reasons why they haven't qualified a lot of the times in the first 3 seasons. Even in Season 4 in the qualifiers, they started not great with balancing, and of course got last in balancing in Season 4. So that's a big reason why they didn't win Season 4, balancing. So if they can manage to, maybe they need to do some lineup changes in that event or something, because that's the only event that they really need to work on. Everything else is solid or very good for the Venomous Vipers. Of course, they have only spent 1 season in the A division, so will they really continue this form across 16 events again in Season 5? It's tough to tell, but I mean, you'd be a fool to not think this is one of the best teams in the Team Quadrilla Marble League, because if you didn't think that after 3 seasons, Season 4 definitely showed that this team is, if not an S tier team, very high A tier team, the Venomous Vipers. I'm very excited to see what they can do to follow up a fantastic Season 4 in Season 5, because they are auto-qualified. They are going straight into the Season 5 A division. Let's go on to our final team of the lot, the Winter Icicles. Now, I think before Season 4, this map would have looked a lot worse, coming off last place in the Season 3 A division, but then they went to the Season 4 B division, and they just rebuilt this team so well. 3rd place overall, and easily their best performance in any season. Relegated just barely in season 1, 13th place, and then season 2 wasn't relegated, I think 10th place, but still very underwhelming in season 2. Then season 3 was also a bit of a disaster in the A division. Then they took a season in the B division. They managed to recoup themselves pretty well, and this team just looked like they had so much more potential than they've ever shown before in the first 3 seasons. Balancing, block bumping, medals there in season 4, marathon. You can see they're just barely above average in these 3 events, despite silvers or bronzes in those events in season 4. So clearly they have struggled in those events. They have struggled in those events in the past, and so those season 4 results clearly show improvement, and they have to keep it up going to season 5. Of course, individually, they aren't as strong of a team. They have, I think, 3 medals, team event-wise, but individually it's just the marathon, quadrilla race, biathlon, and triathlon, elimination race. Those 3 are all very much weaknesses. Sprint is just barely under average, but they're still very close to the average in sprint. Relay race also isn't good, so clearly a lot of those, season 4 isn't everything, right? So season 1, 2, and 3 drag this team down a lot, and especially the individual events. But the Winter Icicles, they are a team that definitely have an upward trajectory, and if they can continue that fine form going to season 5, I could very much see this team qualifying and doing something like the Floundering Fish, because the Fish actually in season 2 got last, and then season 3 got 3rd in the B division. The Winter Icicles have just done the exact same thing, except in season 3 and 4. So if they can follow what the Floundering Fish did, I think it's definitely a success for the Winter Icicles. And they're another team that there is reason to be optimistic about this team going into season 5. And with that, we have gone through all 32 teams from the Amber Animals to the Winter Icicles. I hope you guys enjoyed this different kind of video. Not something I typically do, but I thought it would be a cool idea to make videos about these. Of course, be on the lookout for the individual QML Season 5 main tournament coming out pretty soon with the first event. And feel free to join the Discord server, which will be in the description if you want to be in on the discussion. That's going to be all from me. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day.